Welcome to Russell's Range Devlog 2, where we will be diving into the process of creating characters for the game, looking at the challenges I faced and the progress I made in the past month. Also, at the end of the video, there's a special clip you won't want to miss. First off, let's talk about the issues I encountered over the past month. The main problem was a low frame rate in the Unreal editor. My game was running at a measly 15 FPS on my RTX 3080 GPU, which isn't exactly playable on a high-spec laptop, let alone anything less powerful. So I dug into the console commands to find out what was going on behind the scenes. After using the stat GPU command, I discovered that the GPU was the cause of the frame rate issues. The main strain was coming from the visibility commands and shadow depths. I temporarily fixed this by removing the shadows using the r.shadow quality command, which boosted the frame rate up to around 40 FPS. Still not ideal, as it made the game look terrible, but at least it's not a struggle to play anymore. I also tried the toggle light command prompt, which had a similar effect. After rebuilding the lighting, I noticed some errors that I had missed before. Turns out that the large actors, the two buildings in the scene, were causing issues with the shadows they were creating. I fixed this by changing the directional light mobility from stationary to movable. I have no idea why this works, but it fixed the frame rate issue, that's all that matters. The other issues I faced had to do with the character behaviour, nav mesh, logic errors, and collisions. One bug I encountered was having two chatterboxes appear. This was because I had the chatterbox as an actor, and then I would replace it with a character for movement. This looked terrible, and caused many more issues than it solves. So I deleted the chatterbox actor and added all the code to the character. This resulted in much better behaviour, and I was very happy with it. I also had a strange issue with the exit sign. I wanted it to turn red at random intervals, and it was working for a while as I was programming it. But all of a sudden, the light turned yellow. I was confused, because the code was setting the light to red, but it wasn't turning red. Sometimes Unreal likes to play tricks on me. Turns out that there were two exit lights, and one was turning red, while the other was turning green, resulting in a mix of both colours. I fixed this by deleting the mystery exit sign that I did not place, and everything worked perfectly. Now for the section you have all been waiting for, character development. I develop characters in a fluid way. This fits well with the theme of the game, as the characters in Russell's Range aren't created naturally. They're created by... I usually start with a brief image in my head, and then I block out the model with primitive shapes in Blender. Even at this stage, the form can change and I can make slight variations to the initial idea. For example, with the crawler character, I didn't originally plan on having a head. It was going to be more like a circular gaping mouth at the front of the body. But then, I got the idea to create a creature with more human-like features, as it seemed weird and uncanny, which is what I'm aiming for. I also started out with a creepy smile on its face, but I felt that was a little too cliché, so I decided to make the face completely blank and a bit saggy, to give the impression that the crawler is trying to mimic a human by stealing features from its victims and wearing them like a suit. After I'm happy with the sculpt, I move on to texturing the model. For a base, I usually take a texture from Blender Kit, like the skin and meat texture, then I start to layer others on top, using a black and white mask created in texture painting, and then put everything together with mix shaders. As you can imagine, the most exciting part of the process is retopology. If you don't know what retopology is, this is where I take the sculpted model, which has a ton of faces, in this case 617,383, and reduce that as much as possible by creating a much lower number of faces on the surface. I do this by manually creating the mesh and using tools like the shrink wrap modifier and mirror modifier to speed up the process. I managed to get the face count down to a much more reasonable 7,586 faces, which is a huge improvement. After unwrapping the model and baking it properly, I moved on to rigging the character. Rigging is an essential part of making smooth, quality animations for your character. I kept it simple by just thinking about what animations I needed and not worrying too much about doing things completely properly. I added constraints to the finger bones to make them curl easily, and used inverse kinematics on the legs to make the walking animation easier to create. I knew I could just manually animate the rest of the model, so it wasn't a big deal to add any more bone constraints. After making a test pose to check that the bones were working properly and fixing any weight painting issues, the rigging was complete. Just look at this beauty. After importing the character into Unreal, I had to program its behaviour. As expected, this didn't come without issues. For example, the character's turning is snapping rather than being a smooth turn, which I still haven't figured out how to fix, so any suggestions in the comments would be helpful. Another issue is getting the character to open doors. I managed to fix that, but there are still some doors that the character tries to walk through without actually opening them. That's because the nav mesh, the map that the character used to navigate and move around in the game world, isn't updating properly. Overall, this month has been very productive, and I'm happy with the progress I've made so far. Adding a new anomaly and improving the frame rate are all steps towards the finished product. So, I hope you all enjoyed this update, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and follow my other social media accounts such as Instagram and Twitter. And here is the exclusive, never seen before video.